Hello and welcome to Forge Fireside. Forge is finding opportunities and resources to grow entrepreneurs. Our firesides are chats with innovative entrepreneurs, investors, and others from the startup world, telling their stories and sharing their wisdom with others. With me today is Marcia Dawood, podcast host, author, advisor, venture partner, and advocate. Welcome, Marcia.
Thank you for having me.
So we have a lot to try to cover and get through here today. You've had quite a career and background. I want to try to get on touch on as much of it as I can. But I always like to start out with the sort of the beginning of the journey, your educational background, and what was your intended career path.
So I did my undergrad studies at the University of Pittsburgh, and my dream when I was in college was to be a retail buyer at a department store, and I did get that job. While that was my first job out of college, was to be an assistant buyer in the China department. So to this day, I own more dishes than any normal human being should ever own. And then I did go to school, back to school later in life. I got my MBA when I was 42, and that was from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Awesome. Now, based on kind of both what you studied then and the journey that you've been on, any advice for students today?
Oh, if I could go back, I would want to look at my own finances, understand them better, know that I could have the power, even at a young age, with just a little bit of money, to be able to start to help other entrepreneurs and invest and learn about investing and be able to continue that journey throughout the rest of my life.
We do try to spend a good bit of our energy on things like financial literacy. We're finding that a lot of students coming in really haven't had much exposure to that and don't understand it. And I know with my own kids talking a lot about retirement savings, and they're
Yeah.
like, but Dad, I'm like, no, start now. Trust me,
Yes, the compound interest thing is real.
it is real. So, how did you get into angel investing?
So my husband works in finance, and one day in 2012, he came home and said, "Hey, we got invited to this angel investing meeting." And my response was, "What's angel investing?" I had no idea what that even was. And so we were living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the time, and we went to the meeting, and I was just absolutely fascinated at the amount of innovation that was happening right in my own backyard in Pittsburgh, of all places, which I thought that innovation happened either A, in big companies, or B, in big cities that were like New York and San Francisco. And so I was hooked from the beginning, and I started to go to meetings. I started to learn more about the way that startups were run, how people invested in them. And then about 2 years later, we ended up living in New York City. And I joined a group called Golden Seeds and quickly learned how little funding actually goes to women, people of color, any underrepresented founder. And that is when I got even more passionate about helping entrepreneurs.
Well, you sort of blended my next two questions into one, which, one was going to be what were your early perceptions of the angel investing group field? And then second was, how did you find or in joining groups such as Golden Seeds, was that in direct response to what you had found?
Absolutely. Yeah, just watching the things that entrepreneurs are doing, and they're usually very big visionaries, and they're trying to solve big problems. And these are problems that we need solved by more than just charitable organizations. So I usually will say that, we can't place the burden on charities to solve all of our problems, curing cancer or curing terrible diseases, and making the climate and the world a better place. That's not really fair. We have to actually have a lot of the innovation and changes that we want to see in the world come from for-profit companies, and that usually starts with an entrepreneur who sees a problem and decides that they're going to figure out a way to solve it.
So then how long were you active in angel investing before you took on your role with the Angel Capital Association? And can you tell me a little about that experience with ACA?
Yeah, so the Angel Capital Association is the professional society of angel investors here in the US. We also have some global members. We do education, public policy, data collection. We're not an investment group. We are the place that angels go for best practices. Our members are angel groups and individual angels across the US and globally. So I became a member of the board in 2015. And then in 2021, I became the chair of the board, and my term as chair just ended in 2023. But I'm still a member of the board for another 2 years.
And I'm going to throw in a little bit of a personal experience because I've attended the last couple ACA. Something about the rap that takes place.
That's right. Yes, we can put a link in the show notes for the rap battle. I was watching a Disney video, a Disney rap battle of princess of the Disney princesses, and I thought, oh, I could do a rap battle. And I thought, what would I do it on? And then I started to go down into the weeds and think about like convertible notes and safes and priced equity, which is very specific to angel investing. So the first rap battle was just about angel investors versus venture capitalists. And then I did make another one though on convertible notes and priced equity.
Yeah, it was so timely because I think that didn't we also have a like Darth safe, and we had
yes. Yeah, that was kind of the theme of the conference last year. Was they had a session on the three, like what are the pros and cons of a safe, convertible note, or a priced round, and it was just interesting to see them debate each other. So I felt like I kind of had to come up with a rap battle for it.
I think it was incredibly timely. So let's talk a bit, and for those folks who are hearing terms like safe and convertible notes and priced rounds, we do cover that in our basics and our basics of an angel investing series. So contact us if you want to learn more. We have lots of materials on that. Let's talk a little bit about, so you were talking about the sort of what your perception was in early angel investing and groups like Golden Seeds that really, I think, helped to put the focus where it needs to be. Let's talk about those gender related funding gaps. What are you seeing across the investing area?
Well, the number that we hear a lot is that women get less than 3% of venture capital funding. And the venture capital dollars are much, much bigger than angel dollars. Us angels, we play in we're the early people who come in at the very beginning when companies are first starting to fundraise. But I would say that probably in angel world, it is a little bit better, probably 25%. If you look at the data that the Angel Capital Association put out, especially in its most recent Angel Funders Report, which you can find on our website, you'll find that it's about 25% of female entrepreneurs are getting angel funding. And we found that about 25% of angels that are out there are females. The number has been growing over the last several years. I remember going to the very first Angel Capital Association Summit. There's one every year. I remember the first one that I ever went to, and there was a line at the men's room. So if that tells you anything.
It tells me a lot. And we like, especially in Forge, we do a lot to try to promote the awareness around funding opportunities, equitable access to capital. We've had a number of guests on our firesides over the years who are very directly tied into all of this. Are there any? What would be your remedy or your recommendation? How do you encourage others to help address this? I'll call it systemic issue.
Well, first of all, it's not a very known fact, so we need just more people to be aware of it. And then the more data that we can start to collect on the results that these underrepresented founders are getting, And there have been some studies done by First Round Capital and others who have shown that and a diverse team will definitely produce better results, not just produce better results for revenues, but also they lower expenses. Women in particular, I'll just use them as an example, can be extremely scrappy with a very small amount of money, and they can usually stretch their dollar a little farther because that's something that we as women have had to do for a very long time. And the results will show. And so we don't really at this point have enough of those types of case studies and results to be able to move the needle farther, but it's happening every single day. And you start to see more and more entrepreneurs who are female rising to the top. Whitney Wolfe Herd of Bumble took her company public. Sarah Blakely of Spanx. Some of these women have done extremely amazing things with taking their companies to the top.
Awesome. You like to use a term, I think it's the psychology of money. Can you describe what that relates to?
Sure. When people think about the word investing, they think about needing to get a financial return. And, I get that we've kind of had that programmed into our brain that when we invest, we expect something back. When we donate, for example, like donate to a charity, our expectation of getting a return other than intrinsic returns of feeling very good that we've been helping a charity, our expectations are very low for any type of a financial return. We would not expect that. So I think when we talk about investing and we're investing for impact and we're investing for change, we need to start to shift our mind a little bit. Yes, we are still hoping for that financial return that usually comes along with investing, but we're investing for good. We're investing for change. We're investing to see things in the world that are going to make a difference. And for that, we're going to get a lot more rewards, emotional rewards, as well as the potential financial rewards. And I think when we start to think about it like that, people will start to invest their money a little bit differently because maybe they're going to see like, wow, I actually could help to help a company for treatment of a specific disease, or maybe help with climate control or something like that.
So now I'm going to relate the two. Have you seen a shift? I mean, there's always been this perception with angel investing that there's an added value, right? It's not simply the check, that there's more to it. So if we tie these two things together, is that really where you see that relationship?
And that is really where I think most entrepreneurs and angels want to be. Entrepreneurs need a lot more than just money. Building companies is a very hard, very long, very laborious job. And if you talk to most of the entrepreneurs out there, they will tell you they barely sleep. They're sacrificing things with their family, time with their family and loved ones in order to make their company work. So we really do need to have there be help from not just a financial perspective, but also from an expertise perspective, time perspective, networking, making connections, opening your network so that you can help these entrepreneurs to be able to find the things that they need and the connections that they need in order to grow the business.
So I love that, because I know one of the things we often try to encourage, especially to founders who are raising for the first time, is that there's smart money and dumb money.
Yes.
Avoid the dumb money. Go for the smart money. Think
That's
about
right.
all of the other things that come attached to that, not simply the dollar sign.
That's right. Yes.
So I introduced you as podcast host,
Yes.
and I think there's probably a really clear path here. So how was Angel Next Door born? How did that come about?
Well, a couple of years ago, I got to a point where I personally could not write any more angel checks. I'm not, a very overly wealthy person. I'm not a billionaire. I don't fly private planes, anything like that. So and we at the Angel Capital Association say you should only be investing, 5, maybe 7% of your net worth into an alternative assets, as we call them. Alternative assets would be anything that's relatively illiquid or potentially quite risky, like angel investing. So it got to a point where until I started to see more returns, I couldn't be writing any more checks. And so I thought, well, if I can't write any more checks, what can I do? Well, I can help other people to learn, because I would talk to people and they'd be like, oh, that's really cool. I'd like to invest in a startup company, but I have no idea how to do that. And I don't even know where I would begin. And so I thought, well, maybe I could, if I started a podcast and I called it The Angel Next Door, then people would realize, like, hey, it could be anybody. It could be my neighbor. It could be me. It could be anyone who can be an angel. And so that's what we talk about on the show. I try to bring on a lot of angel investors who will explain why they became angels, or how they learned about it, why they want to be an angel, why they continue to be, and what their interests are. But I also like to bring on things that help entrepreneurs get into the mindset of an angel, so that there's more of a harmony and a loving relationship then in the future of all entrepreneurs and angels, because it is like a marriage. You have to be able to have the good relationship on both sides. The angel can't think, well, I want more of the company, and the entrepreneur can't think, well, I'm going to keep as much as I can. Like it has to be a harmony for everyone. And if that's the case, then the companies will do a lot better.
I love it. We talk a lot about speaking each other's language.
Yes.
I think how many examples where the something breaks down and it's because the founder and the investor aren't speaking the same language.
That's exactly right.
So I think I left out one title in your introduction, also producer. Show Her the Money.
Yep. Yes. I became, along with Sylvia Ma, who I believe that you're going to be talking to not too long from now. We are both associate producers on a documentary called Show Her the Money. The amazing Catherine Gray, who has produced documentaries in the past to tackle big problems and big ideas. She made this film in order to help get that message out, that women do only get less than 3% of the venture capital funding. And how can we get more people to know about this? And how can we get more people involved in it? And as soon as Catherine and I met and I learned about her mission, she also did a TEDx talk just like mine, and our messages are extremely similar. And as soon as we met, we kind of knew we were sisters from another mother, and we were, just in complete harmony. And I knew I had to help her get this message out in the world.
That's awesome. And then, on top of all of these things, so podcast hosting, advisor, producer, you're also a member of the SEC's Small Business Capital Formation Board Committee. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So as my term was ending as the chair of the ACA, I was asked to join the advisory committee for small business capital formation with the SEC. And what we do is we're trying to be a sounding board and actually talk amongst each other about the things that we can do to recommend to the SEC so that we can make it easier for small businesses to thrive. So that could be everything from startups to, the small business on Main Street. So we're really trying to encourage entrepreneurship, encourage small business formation, and basically the reason why we are here in America. And we're trying to make sure that everybody has equal opportunity to do all these amazing things.
I love it. I had John Deary on as a guest a few months ago, and talked a lot about policy and that side of it. How do we encourage entrepreneurs, and also thinking in particular about the disproportionate number of immigrant founders.
That's right. Yes.
So do you get in this group discussions around the definition of accredited investor? Where do you see that going? At one point, I was really excited because it looked like there was an alternate path that didn't have anything to do with income or net worth, and it feels like that stalled. Or where are things at right now in the accredited investor discussion?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you'd like, I can give you the link so that people could watch the meeting that we had in November. It's live on the SEC's website, where we discussed the accredited investor definition. In a nutshell, I personally do not believe, and of course these are my views, not the views of the SEC, but I believe that we should not be using income or any type of wealth. Just because you have money doesn't mean you're a smart investor. We have to educate people more about this. And if we could come up with a level of sophistication that included education, I think that would be great for everyone. Just to say somebody has money doesn't mean that they're going to be a very good investor. And back to what we were talking about earlier about helping entrepreneurs and having this harmonious relationship. Sometimes if people do happen to have a lot of money, then they almost take the idea that they can take control of the entrepreneur or the company or something like that, and that doesn't make any sense either. So this education would help on all fronts, and so we're really passionate at the Angel Capital Association about getting this message to the SEC, which is one of the reasons that I'm happy to be on the committee.
Wonderful. Well, consider me an underwriter, a supporter, however I can. We encounter a lot of students, some of whom are first generation college students. They don't come from wealth, and they basically have already written off the whole investing path because they feel like, well, I'm not wealthy. I don't know anything about investing.
Right.
Why would I? And our goal is to make them sophisticated investors. Even if it's not their money being invested, they can at least make really good advice for those who are investing. Now, if I can also offer them a path to accredited status, that now they're truly at the table, that's the dream.
Yes.
So you have a motto, which I think is it's on your LinkedIn profile and your other, which is do good while doing well.
Yes.
It reminds me a little bit of, so Ross Baird talked a lot about one pocket thinking, and this notion that can you separate the two things? You can, but should you separate the two things? Probably not. Can you, your do good while doing well philosophy, talk about that?
Yeah, so that was the title of my TEDx when I spoke in Charlotte in October of 2022. And then I have a book that's coming out later this year, same title, Do Good While Doing Well. And the whole idea is donating to charity isn't the only way for us to do good in the world. And traditional investing isn't the only way to do well. We can combine the two. We can make an impact in the world. We can help these companies to grow. We can get the innovations that we want to see in the world. I mean, imagine how many companies are out there where entrepreneurs have had amazing ideas, where they could have actually taken the company to commercialization and brought something into the world that was an amazing innovation. And it turns out that they just could not get the backing, the funding, the people they needed around the company in order to make it work. And as a result, we're going to miss out on that.
Yeah. I mean, it is so challenging because I'll run into people who, they think of investing as very one-sided.
Yes.
That I'm just going to give my money and then I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait for the returns to roll in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think angel investing, hopefully, as we've discussed, the role of an angel investor is not passive, or at least it shouldn't be passive.
Right.
But we actually bring companies that are, impact, socially motivated, nonprofit. There's so many different terms for it into our accelerator programs, because from our perspective, the entrepreneurial journey is the same, regardless of your downstream capital model. And so I'm just thinking about sort of the future for angel investing. Where are we headed? Is it VCs are kind of pushing a little bit into the seed and pre-seed space, which compresses things a bit? Is there an alternate path? Are there things that are related to that doing good side of it? Get out your crystal ball, Marcia. What is the future for angel investors?
Well, I just did two very short podcast episodes, one at the end of 2023 and one at the very beginning of 2024, talking about these things. I started a snippet within my podcast called Minutes with Marsha, and I talked about kind of what has happened over the last couple of years and how we've gotten to this environment that we're in right now, which is extremely difficult for entrepreneurs to fundraise, but a look ahead also at kind of where things are. I would say that one of the more interesting statistics I've heard lately is how many entrepreneurs are leaning toward going to equity crowdfunding in order to try to raise money. And there were some statistics that the SEC recently put out in their annual report that showed that a lot of entrepreneurs from coastal cities. So that would be all of the places that are not basically New York or San Francisco or LA, are going toward equity crowdfunding. More women and people of color and underrepresented founders are using equity crowdfunding. And I actually have had a couple of people on my podcast who have raised several hundred thousands of dollars on equity crowdfunding platforms. So if I do think that that is a great place for a lot of investors to start, because you don't have to put a lot of money at risk and you can learn a little bit along the way. And then you can kind of graduate into another like tier, I guess I would say, of angel investing. I also think that the younger generations, they're not going to go to angel group meetings the way that angels have in the past. They're going to want to do things right on their phone. They want it to be easy. They want it to be a platform. And that's really the equity crowdfunding platforms that have the majority of the market share right now, which are like WeFund or Republic, Start Engine. They're figuring it out to make it simple and easy for people to be able to invest.
It's really interesting. We within, for example, the Desert Angels that I'm a part of, we talk a lot about the membership and
Mhm.
that path. How do we both reach the younger in would-be investors, many of whom are very value driven, many of whom don't feel that they look like or act like or talk like some of the people that they see as representatives. I'm not speaking to the Desert Angels, but just you run into ingrained biases, and sometimes there's truth to biases. And so embracing crowdfunding, I think, has been a great way to open those doors and to encourage, both from a investor and founder perspective. Right, we
Yes.
run into a number of founders who, I can't seem to get a meeting with an angel group. I can't, they won't invest in me. Well,
Right.
let's show you this other path and see if that might be helpful. Maybe in that regard, I'm just wondering, what tools or methods do startups use to assess their readiness for seeking angel investment? Let's turn it the other way.
Well, I think entrepreneurs need to look at how where entrepreneurs need to look at where they are and where they are going, and have they really produced a minimum viable product that angels are going to want to invest in. I hear too many entrepreneurs that say, oh, if I could just get some funding, I think I could really make this company go, but I don't have any money and I don't have any way to get the funding, so now what do I do? So that's not really the best attitude. The entrepreneurs that I've seen succeed the most are the ones who just push the envelope and push the envelope and push it, before they actually take funding. And now they've gotten to a point where the only way the company's going to grow is if they take funding. And I think those are usually the ones who are the most successful.
Yeah, I love that if I could just get funding, like, it's kind of like, well, what are you going to do when you get it? Um,
Right.
Careful what
Exactly.
you ask for. Well, this has just been a wonderful conversation. I think it's been filled with really great insights and thinking a lot about the changing landscape. Certainly, there's let us not run the victory lap just yet. There's still an incredible amount of work to do.
There's a lot to do. Yes.
But I really thank you for your tireless work in helping to promote and educate and encourage. We'll be sure to put up links to all the different resources that we mentioned over the course of this show. And I want to thank you very much for your time today, Marcia.
Oh, thanks so much, Brian, for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you soon. Bye bye.